On my orders, the United States military has begun strikes against Al-Qaeda terrorist training camps and military installations of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan. These carefully targeted actions are designed to disrupt the use of Afghanistan as a terrorist base of operations and to attack the military capability of... And I assure you, this will not be a campaign of half measures, and we will accept no outcome but victory.
The question to these people is, if there is no military solution in Iraq, how do they think there is a military solution in Afghanistan and on the tribal areas?
असेंबली में खड़े होकर कहा, मुझे याद है 2004 में मैंने शोर मचाया कि ये ना अपनी फौजें भेजो वज़ीर साहब.
I want to speak to you tonight about our effort in Afghanistan, the nature of our commitment there, the scope of our interests, and the strategy that my administration will pursue to bring this war to a successful conclusion. And as Commander-in-Chief, I have determined that it is in our vital national interest to send an additional 30,000 U.S. troops to Afghanistan.
Guarantee you that for 10 years this can go on. And in the U.S., it might be a loss of money. In Pakistan, we are going under. This country is sinking under this. Pakistan should own up the war, do not behave as a sort of fighting America's war because America is giving Pakistan the money.
So therefore, Afghanistan has never been colonized. Similarly, Pakistan's tribal area have always resisted intrusion from outside. And of course, in the between, when each time I tried to tell them that to have a political settlement, I ended up being branded as Taliban.
Different or better decisions. We will not talk about numbers of troops or our plans for further military activities. Conditions on the ground, not arbitrary timetables, will guide our strategy.
And what advice have you given President Trump about Afghanistan, a war that many Americans have grown tired of 18 years later?
You know, I mean, I kept opposing. I kept saying there is no military solution only because you only have to know the history of Afghanistan. I mean, the British as a superpower went and 3 times failed. Soviets killed 1 million Afghans in the 80s, failed. And how you knew that this was going to be a war that is just would not have achieved any results. Someone should ask, I mean, if I was an American, I would ask that $1.5 trillion at least have been spent in Afghanistan. What have we achieved in this? And then I hear some people saying that, you know, actually, no, we should sort of keep the military or keep this going. And this will go on for another 19 years. The taxpayer in U.S. is going to keep pouring in money in there. While the U.S. was pouring money in Afghanistan in this futile war, the Chinese were developing first world infrastructure, and you just have to go to China to see the way their infrastructure is. And I'm in New York, and I'm watching the you know, the car bumping around here.
Okay.
That money was wasted.
You know, you do not sound right now like a prime minister from Pakistan. You sound like a voter from the Bronx who would complain about the infrastructure, our money being spent on wars in Afghanistan instead of on fixing LaGuardia and the other infrastructure there and across America. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you so much.
No. Look, we spent over $1 trillion over 20 years. We trained and equipped with modern equipment over 300,000 Afghan forces. And Afghan leaders have to come together. We lost death and injury, thousands of American personnel. They've got to fight for themselves, fight for their nation. The United States, I'll insist we continue to keep the commitments we made, providing close air support, making sure that their Air Force functions and is operable, resupplying their forces with food and equipment, and paying all their salaries. They've got to want to fight. They have outnumbered the Taliban, and I'm getting daily briefings. I think there's still a possibility you have a significant new Secretary of Defense, our equivalent of Secretary of Defense in Afghanistan, Bushmullah Khan, who's a serious fighter. I think they're beginning to realize they've got to come together politically at the top. But we're going to continue to keep our commitment. But I do not regret my decision.
Will you allow the American government to have CIA here in Pakistan to conduct cross-border counter-terrorism missions against Al-Qaeda, ISIS, or the Taliban?
Absolutely not. There's no way we're going to
Seriously?
allow any bases, any sort of action from Pakistani territory into Afghanistan.
Will you allow the American government to have CIA here in Pakistan to conduct cross-border counter-terrorism missions against Al-Qaeda, ISIS, or the Taliban?
Absolutely not. There's no way we're going to
Seriously?
allow any bases, any sort of action from Pakistani territory into Afghanistan.